What if you found out that some of heavy metal's wildest performers didn't just collapse from exhaustion? They actually blacked out right in front of a roaring crowd. These weren't quiet, behind-the-scenes moments. These were jaw-dropping on-stage wipeouts that sent fans into panic, crews scrambling, and bandmates frozen in shock. From singers who fainted mid-scream to guitar legends who hit the floor in the middle of a solo, these stories show just how far metal stars pushed themselves to give fans everything they had. So let's dive into 15 heavy metal performers who passed out live on stage. 15. Nikki Sixx. You hear Nikki Sixx's name and instantly picture loud music, wild crowds, and a life that ran hotter than any stage light. In those early Motley Crue days, everything felt louder, faster, and heavier than anything you had seen in rock before. But behind the loud guitars and the out-of-control tours, Nikki was living a life that pushed his body far beyond the breaking point. His collapse on stage wasn't just a shocking moment. It was a reminder of how far he had drifted into danger without even noticing it. That night, you watch him walk onto the stage as if nothing could touch him. The crowd was screaming, the lights were blinding, and the energy felt like a storm that wouldn't stop. But the truth was already catching up. His body had taken too many hits, too many sleepless nights, and too many dangerous choices. When he finally dropped in front of everyone, the noise of the concert suddenly felt too quiet. It was the kind of silence that made you realize the human underneath the rock star mask was hurting more than anyone knew. You look at Nikki in that moment and see a man fighting for control of his own life. The stage collapse became a turning point that people still talk about, not because of the drama, but because it showed that the wildest stars aren't invincible. Nikki's music survived, his story survived, but that moment taught you how quickly everything can fall apart when the life you live is heavier than the music you play. 14. Izzy Stradlin. Izzy Stradlin always carried himself like the quiet force behind the storm. When everyone in Guns N' Roses was busy living loud, Izzy moved like he was walking through a world only he understood. But even quiet storms break, and his onstage collapse became one of those moments where you saw the real weight of the lifestyle he was trapped in. You can almost picture him trying to keep going, trying to hold himself together while his body kept giving warning signs he ignored. The lights were hot, the air was thick, and the noise around him felt endless. Izzy had already been dealing with exhaustion and lifestyle habits that had pushed him too far for too long. Step after step, you see him lose a little more balance until finally his body simply shuts down right in front of everyone. One moment he was standing with a guitar in his hands, and the next moment he was on the ground, unable to fight the pressure anymore. You didn't see a rock star collapse. You saw a man whose life had become too heavy to carry. His fainting wasn't just a dramatic chapter in his story. It was a sign that even the strongest personalities can hit their limit when the world they live in leaves no room to breathe. Izzy eventually walked away from the craziness, but that fall showed you why he needed to escape before the music he loved destroyed him completely. 13. Crispian St. Peters. Crispian St. Peters was known for a soft voice, catchy songs, and a calm presence that made everything feel easy. But behind that smooth image, he often pushed his body harder than anyone expected. His onstage collapse became one of those moments where the spotlight showed a truth he had kept hidden for a long time. When he stepped out in front of the crowd that night, he looked ready to give the audience another strong performance. He smiled, waved, and acted like the stage was the safest place in the world. But inside, his health was already slipping. The long tours, the pressure to keep performing, and the physical strain were slowly wearing him down. As the music played and the lights grew hotter, you could almost feel his body struggling to keep up. His steps became slower, his breathing heavier, and the calm look on his face slowly melted into quiet discomfort. And then, right in the middle of the show, his legs gave out and he collapsed in front of everyone. That fall wasn't dramatic or loud. It was almost gentle, like his body had simply reached the end of what it could handle. You look at that scene and understand how even artists who look peaceful and collected can be fighting battles you never see. His collapse became a reminder that talent does not protect anyone from exhaustion. Crispian kept singing afterward, but that moment showed how close he had come to losing everything on the very stage that had made him famous. 12. Viktor Urbanchik. Viktor Urbanchik was the kind of musician who gave everything to his craft. When he stepped onto a stage, you could feel the depth of his passion just from the way he carried himself. He didn't need loud tricks or flashy lights to hold a crowd. His presence alone was enough. But on the night he collapsed, nobody expected that the performance he started would quietly become his final moment in front of an audience. The hall was warm, the atmosphere felt calm, and the people watching were ready for another thoughtful performance. Viktor appeared steady at first, moving with slow confidence as he prepared for another set. But his heart had already been struggling. Years of pushing through stress, travel, and non-stop work had taken their toll. As the performance continued, his breathing grew uneven, and his hands trembled just slightly, though most people didn't notice it in the soft stage light. When he collapsed mid-performance, it felt unreal. One moment he was deep in the music, and the next he was falling, his body giving up in complete silence. There was no dramatic shout, no warning, just a sudden end to the energy he had carried for so long. The audience didn't even understand what had happened at first, because it looked so peaceful. Viktor's final collapse reminded everyone that passion can drive a person forward, but the body has limits that cannot be ignored. His last moment on stage became a quiet symbol of dedication, showing how deeply an artist can love their craft even when their strength is fading. 11. Devin Clifford. Devin Clifford played the drums with a kind of energy that filled every corner of a room. He wasn't the face at the front of the stage, but his presence was powerful enough to shape the entire performance. When he sat behind the drum kit, he brought a heartbeat to the music that pulled everyone into the show. But during that tragic night, his body was fighting a battle he didn't know he was about to lose. His collapse became one of the most shocking moments the band and fans had ever seen. As the concert moved forward, you could hear the steady rhythm Devin kept alive with every beat. He played with excitement, strength, and the kind of passion you only see in musicians who truly love what they do. But hidden beneath that passion, a sudden brain hemorrhage was quietly building. There were no signs, no warnings, nothing that suggested anything was wrong. Then, in the middle of the performance, his movements slowed. His sticks slipped slightly, and his posture changed just enough to cause concern. Before anyone could react, he collapsed behind the drums. The music stopped almost instantly, and confusion spread across the room. It was a moment where the energy of the concert turned into disbelief, and the crowd realized something serious had happened. Devin's on-stage collapse became a reminder of how fragile life can be, even for someone full of energy and talent. His final performance showed that sometimes danger hides behind passion, and even the strongest performers can fall without warning. 10. Paolo Faez Panigada. Paolo Faez Panigada was known for his warm spirit, bright personality, and the joy he brought to every performance. He played multiple instruments, sang with heart, and carried the kind of charm that made the audience feel connected to him. When he stepped on stage, he didn't just perform. He created an atmosphere filled with life and laughter. But on the night he collapsed, that joy suddenly shifted into sadness as his final moments unfolded in front of the people who admired him. The concert started like any other. Paolo moved confidently across the stage, switching instruments with ease, and smiling at the crowd. His energy felt light and effortless. Nobody watching had any idea that his body was under quiet strain. As the music carried on, something inside him began to fail, but he pushed forward, unaware that his final performance had already begun. In the middle of a lively section of the show, Paulo suddenly lost his balance. His face changed, his hands trembled, and before anyone could understand what was happening, he collapsed. The musicians around him rushed toward him, the audience fell silent, and the bright atmosphere that he had created shifted into a moment of heavy emotion. Paulo's collapse didn't feel like the end of a performance. It felt like the sudden ending of a life that had been full of warmth, talent, and generosity. His final moment on stage became a heartbreaking reminder that even the happiest performers can face danger without warning. 9. Judge Dredd. Judge Dredd always brought humor, mischief, and a loud, lively energy to every performance. He wasn't just a singer. He was a full entertainer who knew exactly how to make people laugh, cheer, and forget their worries for a while. His bold personality and playful style filled every stage he walked onto. But during his final performance, that same stage became the place where his body could no longer carry the pressure he had ignored for too long. His collapse was so sudden that the audience didn't even realize something serious had happened at first. That night, Judge Dredd was doing what he loved most. He delivered jokes, moved across the stage with confidence, and sang with the kind of spirit that had carried him through his long career. Even though he looked strong from the outside, his heart was already struggling beneath the surface. As the performance continued, his breathing grew heavier, but he kept pushing through, determined to give the crowd a good time. Then, in the middle of a routine moment, he suddenly stopped. His body swayed, his expression changed, and he collapsed right there on stage. The audience initially believed it was part of his comedic act because he often used dramatic movements in his shows. But the performers around him knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. Judge Dredd's final fall became a powerful reminder that even the biggest personalities can hide their pain behind laughter. His death on stage showed how unpredictable life can be, especially for performers who give every bit of themselves to their audience. 8. Colonel Bruce Hampton. Colonel Bruce Hampton was respected for his creativity, his warmth, and the way he shaped generations of musicians with his unique talent. His music wasn't just sound. It was a full experience, filled with humor, surprises, and deep emotion. On the night he collapsed, he was surrounded by friends, fellow artists, and a crowd that adored him. It was meant to be a birthday celebration, a joyful gathering to honor a man who had spent his life lifting others. Nobody expected that this celebration would quietly become his final performance. The stage was filled with love that night. Musicians played with excitement, and Bruce smiled as he watched the younger artists shine. He moved with his familiar charm, interacting with the band while enjoying the moment. There was no sign that his body was running out of strength. As the music reached a lively point, he stepped forward for a playful moment in the show, something he had done countless times before. Then, without any warning, his body gave out. He fell slowly, almost gently, and many people believed it was part of the performance because Bruce often added humor and unexpected moves into his shows. But as the seconds passed, it became clear that he wasn't acting. Panic spread, and the celebration instantly shifted into confusion and fear. Colonel Bruce Hampton's final collapse felt surreal because it happened during such a loving moment in his life. His death on stage reminded everyone how fragile time can be, even in moments filled with joy and music. 7. Rebop Kwaku Ba. Rebop Kwaku Ba was known for his incredible rhythm, vibrant energy, and the passion he poured into every performance. His percussion brought life to the music around him, and he had a rare way of making the entire stage feel alive. People admired him not only for his talent, but also for his warm presence. But during one of his performances in Germany, Everything changed in a moment that nobody saw coming. His collapse became a heartbreaking reminder that even the strongest performers can fall without warning. That night, Rebop played with his usual strength. The crowd felt his energy, the beat flowed through the air, and he moved with confidence across the stage. His rhythm was steady, powerful, and full of emotion. But inside, something was going terribly wrong. His body had been under pressure for days, and the exhaustion was slowly building to a dangerous level. He pushed through it anyway, determined to give the audience a memorable show. As the performance continued, Rebop's movements began to slow. His posture shifted slightly, though most people didn't notice. Then, all at once, he collapsed. The instruments dropped from his hands, the crowd froze, and the musicians around him rushed to help. The moment felt unreal because it happened so quietly, without any warning or dramatic signal. Rebop Kwaku Ba's death on stage left fans and fellow artists stunned. His collapse showed how deeply he committed himself to his craft, giving every bit of his energy until there was nothing left. His final performance became a silent tribute to the power and passion he carried throughout his life. 6. Mark Sandman. Mark Sandman carried a mysterious, calm energy wherever he went. As the frontman of Morphine, he created a dark, smooth sound that felt different from anything else in rock. He moved slowly, spoke softly, and played with a cool confidence that made each performance feel intimate and hypnotic. But during a concert in Italy, that calm presence turned into a moment of unexpected tragedy. When he collapsed on stage, the audience watched a powerful life end in complete silence. The night of his final show felt like any other. Mark stood under the lights, his bass in hand, creating those deep tones that pulled the room into his world. His voice was steady, his stance relaxed, and he looked completely in control. But his heart was already failing inside his chest, and even he had no idea that danger was moments away. As the song continued, he took a small step forward, then another, and suddenly his body weakened. His movements slowed in a way that didn't match the rhythm, and before anyone could understand what was happening, he collapsed to the ground. The band stopped playing, the crowd fell silent, and confusion filled the room as people tried to process the scene in front of them. Mark's on-stage death shocked fans across the world. His final fall wasn't loud or dramatic. It was quiet, peaceful, and heartbreaking. His collapse showed how quickly life can change, even in a moment filled with music and art. His final breath on stage became one of the most tragic chapters in rock history. 5. Ty Longley. Ty Longley brought a warm, energetic presence to every show he played. As the guitarist for Great White, he knew exactly how to fire up the crowd with big smiles, sharp riffs, and a friendly energy that made fans feel close to him. On the night of the tragic Rhode Island show, nobody expected the performance to turn into one of the most shocking moments in rock history. Ty walked on stage ready to entertain, completely unaware that this performance would become his final one. The concert began normally. The band stepped into the lights, the crowd cheered loudly, and the room filled with the excitement that always comes with a hard rock show. But within moments, everything changed. The pyrotechnics lit the club walls on fire, sending smoke through the room faster than anyone could escape it. Panic spread instantly, and people began rushing for the exits. The band members tried to make their way out as well, but the smoke and flames grew too quickly. Ty, known for his bravery and kindness, didn't run immediately. Many people believe he stayed inside trying to help fans who were trapped in the chaos. In the heavy smoke, his body gave out, and he collapsed inside the burning building. His death became one of the most heartbreaking losses in modern rock history. Ty's final moments showed how sudden danger can be, and how deeply he cared about the people who came to see him play. 4. Sib Hashian. Sib Hashian, the former drummer of Boston, carried a powerful, steady presence that fans instantly recognized. His drumming on those famous classic rock songs created rhythms people still hum decades later. Even after leaving the band, Sib continued performing because music was a part of who he was. During a cruise ship concert, he stepped on stage with his familiar confidence, ready to bring back the sound that audiences loved. The setting was calm and beautiful. The ocean stretched in every direction, the crowd was relaxed, and the atmosphere felt peaceful. Sib sat behind the drum kit, smiling as he tapped into the groove that had shaped his entire career. He looked comfortable, focused, and fully at home on the stage. But deep inside, his heart was struggling in ways nobody around him could see. As the music moved forward, Sib's breathing shifted. His arms slowed slightly, though it looked like he was simply easing into the rhythm. Then, in the middle of the song, his hands dropped from the drums. His body leaned back and he collapsed in complete silence. The musicians near him froze, confused for a moment before realizing something had gone terribly wrong. Sib's death on stage shocked everyone present because it happened so quietly. 1 second, he was playing with the same steady force he was known for, and the next second, he was gone. His final performance became a sad yet powerful reminder of how suddenly life can end, even for someone who spent decades creating unforgettable music. 3. Dimebag Darrell. Dimebag Darrell was one of the most loved guitarists in heavy metal history. His playing, his personality, and his connection with fans made him stand out from every other musician of his time. When he stepped onto a stage, you felt his energy before he even played the first note. But during a damage-planned show in Ohio, a moment of senseless violence turned a night of music into a tragedy that shook the entire world. The concert began like any other. The band was excited, the crowd was cheering, and Dimebag walked out ready to give people the powerful performance they expected from him. His smile, his movement, and his confidence made the room light up. Nobody imagined danger could be sitting quietly in the audience. Then, without warning, a gunman rushed the stage. In seconds, everything transformed from excitement to horror. The attacker targeted Dimebag directly, firing at him before anyone could react. The band members, security team, and fans were thrown into chaos as people tried to understand what was happening. In that terrible moment, Dimebag collapsed on the stage he loved, surrounded by confusion and fear. His death became one of the darkest events in metal history. It wasn't caused by exhaustion, illness, or an accident. It was caused by an act of violence that had no reason or explanation. Dimebag's final performance remains a heartbreaking reminder of how quickly something beautiful can be destroyed, even in a place meant for joy and music. 2. Leslie Harvey. Leslie Harvey was the kind of guitarist whose sound carried both soul and strength. As a member of Stone the Crows, he brought emotion into every note and connected deeply with the audience through his expressive playing. On the night he died, he walked onto the stage expecting another normal concert, unaware that the simplest movement would lead to one of the most tragic accidents in rock history. The venue was small, the crowd was excited, and Leslie was in good spirits as he prepared for the show. He moved across the stage, checking his equipment just like he always did. But that night, the stage setup had a hidden danger. A microphone cable had become faulty, and the electrical grounding in the venue wasn't safe. Nobody noticed the issue until it was far too late. As Leslie reached for the microphone, electricity surged through his body instantly. The shock was so powerful that he collapsed right where he stood. The band rushed toward him, and the crowd watched in stunned silence, unsure of what had just happened. It was a moment that took only seconds but changed countless lives forever. Leslie Harvey's death on stage remains one of rock's most tragic accidents. It showed how something as simple as touching a microphone could become deadly when safety is ignored. His final moment captured the harsh reality that even the most talented musicians are vulnerable to dangers they never expect. 1. Mike Scaccia. Mike Scaccia was a force of pure energy. As the guitarist for Rigor Mortis and Ministry, he brought wild speed, intense emotion, and a fierce presence to every show. Fans loved him for the way he played, like his guitar was part of his body. When he stepped on stage, he was unstoppable. But during a Rigor Mortis performance in Texas, his body reached a breaking point that even he didn't see coming. His collapse became one of the most heartbreaking losses in metal history. That night, Mike was in his element. He moved across the stage with absolute confidence, firing through riffs with the same power he had carried for decades. The crowd felt the intensity, cheering louder with every moment. Nothing about his performance looked weak or tired, but inside, his heart was struggling harder than anyone could see. During a heavy, fast section of the show, he suddenly slowed down. His body leaned forward, his guitar slipped slightly, and then he collapsed in front of everyone. The music stopped instantly. The band members rushed to him as the audience watched in shock. It was clear right away that something serious had happened. Mike Scaccia's death on stage left a deep mark on the metal community. His final moment captured the commitment he had to his music, performing with full power until his very last breath. His collapse became a symbol of how unpredictable life can be, even for someone as strong and passionate as Mike. And there you have it, 15 heavy metal stars who pushed their bodies so hard that the stage itself became the place where everything gave out. Their collapses were shocking, terrifying, and unforgettable, but they also showed just how far these performers were willing to go for the music they loved and the fans who lived for every moment. But now, here's the real question. If these were the wipeouts caught in front of thousands, how many more backstage close calls will the world never hear about? If you want more wild stories from the world of metal, hit that like button, tap subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next deep dive. You're not going to want to sit this one out.